Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dancing Sobr podcast, and I'm going to try to make this intro brief. So let's give a big shout out to our sponsors, PICARESCA Cafe. PICARESCA Cafe is a little coffee shop out on Soto Street near Olympic. They have a ton of different varieties of coffee from all over the world. They roast their own beans. They are ethically sourced, and drop by and visit them sometimes. They make the best cup of coffee, and they also have food pop-ups in there on occasion. So follow them on Instagram so you can find out more about them. They also roast our coffee. So this is a Dancing Sobr blend, or this one is from Ethiopia, but we also have a Chiapas blend. And hit us up if you want to get some of that, and I'll be letting you know when I'll be selling it again in person. I want to give a big shout out to Espacio 1839. Espacio is this beautiful shop here that gives us a place, gives us a home to have this podcast for now till we find our little studio somewhere. Big shout out to Espacio. Remember, it's the holidays, and look at all this beautiful stuff they have in here to shop around and buy stuff for your nephews and nieces, which is what I always do in here. Anytime any one of them is having a birthday, I drop in and pick something up. And they're open Friday through Sunday. Follow them on Instagram and check out their website. You could also order by mail, espacio1839.com. I want to welcome Esquina Bicycle Shop to the mix during the holidays from now till December 22nd. I'll be shouting them out on each episode too. Esquina Bicycle Shop is a local-owned bike shop out on Boyle and Whittier, and they have all different types of ranges of bicycles and bike accessories that you can purchase from there. They also have a website, so look for them on Instagram at esquina.bicycleshop and follow them, and let's give them a lot of shout outs on the internet too. Hit them up on Instagram, let them know you heard about them here, and that's where you can get yourself a holiday gift too. Get yourself a bike and keep that exercise regimen going on. So big shout out to Esquina Bicycle Shop. Today we are wearing the City Terrace t-shirt from Cultivarte. Check out Cultivarte for any screen printing needs. If you need to make some shirts, if you have a company that needs shirts, if you're having an event, if you're a nonprofit with holiday things you want to make for your company, hit up Cultivarte. They're on Instagram at Cultivarte Studios. I really like this shirt. I saw them when they were having an event out in City Terrace, and I know that Boyle Heights gets a lot of representation, and East LA gets a lot of representation, and I grew up right where the three of them meet, near the Salesian Boys and Girls Club. So growing up there, I feel like City Terrace was in my backyard, Boyle Heights was where I played in all the time, and East LA was definitely a big part of me growing up. So I like to say I grew up in all three of them because I literally was right in the middle of all of that. So shout out to City Terrace and all the people out there, and much love. So without any further delays, let's get into this podcast. Today's guest is... Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dancing Sobr podcast. And I just want to say that I'm very excited to have our guest here today. He had nothing better to do. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rafael Cardenas. Thank you for having me. It's our pleasure to have you here. I know that you have a busy schedule as well, like most of our guests do. But we're gonna do something different this time. Since I think you're familiar with all the things around here. I'm just gonna take off and leave this whole thing to you. Wait, are you sure? I'll be back for the final question. Yeah, I got this. Don't trip. Nice shirt. All right. So, hey everybody, what's up? I guess Rafa's guest didn't show up today, so he's forcing me to do this, and that's cool because I like kicking it with you guys, and I always wondered what I look like on this side of the table. So hi, and thank you for having me. I'm gonna try to do the same kind of questions that I do to my guests. So let's give it a shot and let's see how this goes. I'm gonna start with how I grew up and where I grew up, and I was born in Mexico in 1971, the same year that Jim Morrison put out LA Woman and The Doors, and the same year that Stanley Kubrick put out A Clockwork Orange. And I was born in a very small town called Pihuamo. I was the third born. There was two women before me, and then me. So I was the oldest boy, and my family, we didn't have money out there, and I was born on a little tiny ranchito in a town called Pihuamo, Pihuamo, and we had the little ranchito life. I don't remember. I don't have any memories of Mexico because I came when I was 4 years old. There's a couple memories that I have that I think I have from when I was little, but I'm not really sure if they're real or if I made them up in my head because of the stories that I've heard people tell about me. So yeah, that's where I was born, and my family came over here. My youngest brother, Jose Luis, was born in the United States at General Hospital in 1974, and after me, my brother Richard was born, and then after him, Jose Luis was born here in the United States. So it's us three and Maria and Erlinda, and my parents came to the United States at that time. They came first, had the baby, and then the rest of us came. So I guess for like a year we were out there with my grandma, who was taking care of us, and everything that I say is just what I'm trying to remember. I'm not exactly sure about anything. I haven't had these conversations with my mom for a long time, so I'm just going to try to piece things together. But I know that my parents first landed in Aliso Village, and because she had some brothers here too, and they all landed here, and my mom didn't like it in Aliso Village, so immediately my mom and dad moved to a little street called Gleason near the Mercado. So like they were like Gleason in Indiana, and they had a small house, but eventually moved to the house that I came to, all of us came to grow up in. It was a tiny apartment over on Winter Street on the corner of Winter and Dittman. And this little tiny like bungalow complex apartment buildings, or just a bungalow complex, the old school ones that have the walkway down the middle with cement and some grass and stuff. Eventually all that was covered with concrete, but when we were little it had some grass and dirt areas and some trees in there, but now it's all concrete. And yeah, we grew up there our entire youth, I guess, up until when I was 16. We grew up in that little tiny house, and then for 2 years we went out and we lived in City Terrace, over on City Terrace Drive, all the way near Eastern. So we were all the way deep in City Terrace, and then we moved back over to Blanchard and Townsend. So still pretty much staying in the same area, and there was five of us. We grew up, like kids back then did, I guess. We had a lot of just running in the streets, a lot of playing. It was like the song, and like Warren G says, you were outside until the street lights came on, and sometimes even longer. And we just we had freedom. We had a lot of freedom as kids that a lot of kids today don't have. We had the freedom to explore and have adventures, and I don't know, just the street freedom was so different back in the days. I of course I don't know now because I'm not a kid, but I'm sure some kids still have that. But it's very different for the younger people in my family, or like my kid and my nephews and nieces. I went to Malabar Elementary. Started in kindergarten, and in the third grade, I was tested for the Gifted Talented program, and I got into that, but I somehow got lost in the mix. And I think the reason why I got lost in the mix and I didn't stay with all those classes was because in the fourth grade, my teacher, Mr. Holmes, was an old man, and so this had to be like 1980 maybe. In my head it's still the 70s, but I was young, yeah. So the fourth grade, I don't know how old you have to be in the fourth grade. In the fourth grade, Mr. Holmes, on the first day of school, was taking attendance, and as he said my name, he was like, he couldn't say my name. He was an old white man, and he said Rafael or whatever he said, and I was like, here. And then he said, we're going to change your name to Ralph. And he literally took a pen and changed my name to Ralph. in my transcripts. So from that day on, I was known as Ralph, and I think that's why some of my records got lost in the mix, and I didn't get put back into the gifted program until sixth grade. So I missed like 3 very formative years, or maybe 2.5 very formative years of like being in the gifted program. But anyways, that like the changing of my name also changed my life because now it was Ralph. And it's funny to me now, but it's a big difference to hear people calling you Ralph and then to hear them calling you Rafael. And you don't think of it when you're young. You're like, all right, that's my name. And so for a very long time, I was Ralph. And, I was a kid from the days where you don't say anything, you just follow, you just agree, you just, you know, try to make as less noise as possible around adults. And so I was Ralph for a long time, and then I went to middle school. I went to what we called junior high back then. I went to Belvedere Junior High School, and Belvedere Junior High School was a lot of fun. And there is where I had like this group of friends that we called ourselves the GP Vice, which was really dumb, but it was the Gifted People's Vice because of Miami Vice days and all that. So the GP was all these gifted nerds and myself, and yeah, so I was around the gifted kids in middle school and had a really good time. But something happened like in the ninth grade, and that's when I started to like really I think in the ninth grade is when I got my first fail, because before that I had extremely good grades and I was a really good kid. And in the seventh grade, actually, alcohol somehow came into my life, being a kid, and I don't want to get into all the details of all the drinking that I did as a young kid and all the school that I missed, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me that in middle school is when I started ditching parties and skipping school. So that was middle school. It was a big mess in the ninth grade when I got my first fail, and it kind of broke my heart also when I did get that first fail. And then I went to high school at Roosevelt for 1 year. Went to Roosevelt. And I was partying a lot at Roosevelt too. And so I told my parents to move me to Garfield for the 10th grade for the 11th grade, because back then Roosevelt started at 10th. And I asked my parents to move me to Garfield for the 11th grade. So I went to Garfield. Let me get some water. So I went to Garfield for the 11th grade, and there I also messed up even worse, and I just kept skipping school. I skipped so much school that when I went to the first day of senior year of my 12th grade, I showed up, and they called me immediately in the first class to the counselor's office, and I went down to meet the counselor, and they said, where the hell have you been? Like, you've missed so much school that there's no way that you're going to graduate this senior year, even if you do night school and do an extra class in the morning. Like, there's no way that you'll get enough credits to finish high school. So I said, well, I don't want to stay an extra year. What can I do? And they said, well, you can try continuation. So I went to continuation school, and I went to East LA Skills Center back before it is where it is now over on in Lincoln Heights. It used to be over in Monterey Pass Road, up the street from 7-Eleven and Floral, up the street on Monterey Pass Road. And it was a little tiny building. And this is crazy, but in 3 months, I finished all of my senior packets. So that meant that when you show up to continuation, they give you these packets, and each packet could be like, 10th grade English, 10th grade math, 11th grade English, 11th grade math, 11th grade science, and all that. And so I finished everything in 3 months, and that was it. I got my GED, and then I decided that I wanted to get my diploma, so I stayed a little longer to get a few extra credits and got my high school diploma. So then that was it. I was done with high school. It was kind of crazy, being 18 and really not having any kind of direction still about what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and for a while I thought that I wanted to be a lawyer, But of course, my grades and all that was not good enough for me to get me going into any kind of law school. And I didn't know anything about college. I didn't know anything about signing up for financial aid, or I didn't have the resources were probably out there because a lot of my peers that were in the gifted programs, they did take advantage of all that. But I didn't have any kind of structure or like support to help me figure that out and to help me or to convince me to even try. Mostly back then, what people told us was get a job, and so we did. We got jobs and we worked crappy jobs because that's what we thought we were supposed to do. I mean, not that it's a bad thing, of course not. If what you want is to have a job, then get your job. But so I did that. What can I tell you? Where was I? Yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do. So, oh yeah, that's right. After high school, because of the lawyer thing, I decided to take some paralegal certificate courses, and so I went to a business college. It was I forgot what the name of it was even, but it was a business college down on Wilshire Boulevard, near where all the lawyers are on Wilshire, near Vermont and near Normandy. And yeah, I took some classes and I became certified as a paralegal. But that I realized really just meant that I was certified to be like a secretary, pretty much. Like I learned back then, I learned Windows 95. I learned how to file things. I learned how to file things in the courts. It was a lot of like little tiny tasks that you learn to do. So you learn to become support for the attorney. I also learned like how to do legal research, which was a lot of fun before the internet, where you had to go to a library, find cases and find law books and find Jones versus James or whatever to find references. And that was a lot of fun, actually. And I enjoyed it a lot. But when I finally started working in law offices, I hated it. And I didn't know why. I didn't realize why. But I guess this was and at the same time, a few things were happening at this time. At the same time as I was working in law offices, I was trying to figure out what the hell I wanted, and that was around the time. Oh, I should backtrack a little bit. I have a child by this time. I was 19 when my daughter was born, with my high school sweetheart, or one of my high school sweethearts. We had a baby, and I was 19. So it was 1990 when my daughter was born. So I was a 19-year-old little flaquito, trying to get this law certificate and trying to be a dad and trying to be present. That's one of the things that I always knew I wanted to do, was to always completely be present in my daughter's life. And it wasn't that common back then. Now it's very common, and it's beautiful to see a lot of young men stick around and take care of their children and all that. But it wasn't as common as it is now, and it was something that I knew that I wanted to make sure that I was there for my daughter. Excuse me. So here I am, flaquito, like barely 20, from like 20 to 21. My daughter was born when I was 19, so like 20 to 21, I'm over here trying to work in law offices and be that guy that wears that shirt and tie and had that little tight haircut, what I used to call the Oscar de la Hoya haircut, which was just tight on the sides and little hair on top. And I just wasn't happy, and that was the same year that tragedy struck my family when my youngest brother was killed in the streets of Bell Gardens. I'm not going to get into a lot about that day, but it was he was defending somebody, and a big fight happened, and my brother lost his life that day, unfortunately, and it was a tragedy that struck my family hard. And in a time when we were all just running around doing crazy shit, fucking. I mean, I did a lot of stupid shit back then too, and we were partying a lot, I mean, not that the partying stopped, but we were, I don't know. And when my brother died, my family became really tight after that. We were always very tight. We were all close to the same age. All of us were just like barely 1 year apart. So we were tight. We all hung out together. We all partied together, and we all had our friends overlapped. We had really good times growing up and into our adolescence and our young adulthood. And when my brother died, we became even stronger and closer and had more family, quote unquote, events and gatherings, and then of course we almost religiously went to see my brother's grave every Sunday for a long time, years. We still go on his birthday and on other significant dates to go see him. And we try to go as much as we can as a group, all of us together. But we still have a very, very caring, very loving relationship with each other. Um, but that's also like something that changed my life a lot. So just to backtrack a little bit, it was 1993. My daughter was 3 years old. My sister had had her first son, so there was already two little family babies in the family, and we uh, we were all really tight, and it's also the exact same time that I started to do theater, which was a weird transition from like the world that I was in, where I was like trying to be, work in law offices and doctors' offices. I had a lot of jobs like that, where I was, wearing a shirt and tie and trying to be management and trying to be different kind of positions like that. To like when I when I started going to East LA College in the fall of 1993, it was at the same time that I was emotionally like going through all this. And it's when I started to do theater, and theater became my therapy, where I didn't talk about what I was going through with the people that I knew from theater. They were all brand new people in my life, so I wasn't walking around telling anybody what happened. And but when I would get on stage and I would open up, that became my therapy, to be able to just scream or yell or cry or whatever on stage. So little by little, God, I mean, I need to do some kind of timeline of my life so I could really see like when things happened. But little by little, my life started like, slowly pulling away from all of the other work that I used to do, and started going closer and deeper into the arts. And I mean, of course, theater was the first thing that I dove completely into. And man, theater is still something that like cleanses my soul, or cleanses my emotional palate when I go out to see a show. And it can be like uh cathartic for even the audience members to watch something. So theater is something that, even though I haven't done it in such a long time, it's still so deeply rooted in my emotions. So yeah, that's theater. And so little by little, theater, I did a lot of stuff. I did a couple of short films, and I thought that I was gonna, stay being an actor, or but like the story of my life is that every time that I got to a point somewhere that people started to ask for degrees and stuff, I always felt less than. And so that's one of my struggles, has always been like that. I didn't have a degree. So a lot of the things that I do have been like the DIY style, because I don't have a degree. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna do shit my way, and I'm gonna do what I want to do. And little by little, I just fucking started doing whatever the fuck I wanted to do. And it's sometimes I look at it as a very selfish thing, because because of that, I didn't always have money. I didn't stay working in the corporate world. I didn't stay wearing a shirt and tie. and a lot of times I suffered financially, and there was also some really good moments artistically, financially together. But it's definitely a roller coaster. So let me see, where am I? I'm trying not to lose you guys. So doing theater, trying to make money. Give me a second. So I was doing a lot of theater, and that's when yeah, I I guess I have to backtrack a little bit, and I also got to go back and say like that. I grew up with so much hip hop. I grew up with hip hop when, like on my block, I was the only guy listening to hip hop. Then little by little, I got my friends into it, and little by little, I would always be the guy talking about, "Have you guys heard this?" But listen to what they're saying, and stuff like that, and little by little, hip hop became mainstream. But because of that, when I was young too, I would write a lot of raps. So I always wrote raps, and I'd make my own tapes, recording back and forth on tape decks back when I was young. But this is where theater and hip hop combined for me. I was hanging out with somebody that invited me to a show out at this is during my theater days. I was invited to go check out a band, and I again, like, it's kind of difficult for me to illustrate this, but I was just one of those little street kids that just mess around in the street all the time, just got drunk, and even though I was like, I thought I was smart, but even though like I thought I could be a paralegal and all this other stuff, I was still just like this kid that really didn't know a lot about the art world at all, like was never really introduced into it, I guess. No, we did some graffiti stuff, but anyways, when I went to this to check out this band, it was the band Slow Rider, and I went to go see them, and because of my theater connections, I knew one of the guys in the band, and he knew that I liked to rap and that I liked that I wrote my own rhymes. So I'm checking out this band. They're called Slow Rider. They're instrumental band, and the guy that recognizes me, he's a guitar player, and he's nodding his head and gesturing for me to get up on the microphone and rap. So I did, and 2 weeks later, we're opening up for Ozomatli, and so wow, right? And I'm totally like making all these stories so tiny and so short, but that's how I ended up in hip hop. That's how I ended up like being a rapper. So after my stint with theater, and in theater, I mean, it wasn't like short. My theater thing was a long time. I did theater at East LH College for a lot of years. Then I did theater with the Bilingual Foundation of the Arts for a ton of years, and also worked in their offices. And then I also did theater for a company called Will and Company. Will and Company were a Shakespeare company that we toured shows around Los Angeles high schools and stuff like that. And then I also did shows that toured to the Bay Area. I did some theater that toured all the way to London and Scotland. I was like fortunate enough to be in a world traveling show when I was 24, 25, going into 25. So yeah, just a ton of experience because of theater. And I also did theater with Here and Now, which was another a company that really shaped also the way a lot of my philosophies about theater. But so so, but that was like coming to like, it was slowing down, and that's when I started to do like more, started getting involved with the band, and the band became a big thing to me. And I stayed with the band. This is now 98. The band was from like 98 to 2001, I think, something like that. And I was able to record with them. And I mean, if you hear it now, of course, it's not going to compare to any modern day music, but the musicality of it, I think, still resonates. And so yeah, that's something that I'm very proud of. A little piece of my life that was some of the funnest times too. Just like being in a band is so much fun, and making music and performing. There was some crazy, like, just magical moments performing. Some moments that you don't know where, like, these energies come from, and they just flow through you and out you and into the audience, and yeah, there's just I don't have words to explain some of those moments, so I don't know how. So I don't. This is a lot of what I try to get from people when I talk to them on this show. Is like I try to get, like, wow, how does that happen? And do you understand it? And do you understand, like, what the connections are? I always try to understand these things that I don't know how to put words to. So that was my time with Slow Rider, and then ¿Qué más te digo? I'll go back a little bit and cover a few things if I remember. So that was my time with Slow Rider, and so at one point, after a while, after, like, Slow Rider and theater was like, I was, like, in the point where I was like, shit, I really need to get a job, and I wasn't in the band anymore, and so when when Slow Rider ended, and theater was, I was still doing plays, but a lot less often, is when I realized, oh shit, I need to get it, like, I'm gonna get a real job now. My daughter was now growing up. She was, like, starting to enter middle school, and that was around the time where, like, I got a job, and I got some jobs with nonprofits, and I started to do a lot of business assistance, and I learned a lot about, you know, how City Hall, how the city, you know, business licensing and all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna probably just breeze through all this, but so I was doing the business assistance thing with a good friend of mine. We started a company called LABusinessConnect.com. It was online. At the same time, I had my own graphic design company, which had a ridiculous name, Rafa Design Team. Rafa for, like, graphic design. Rafa, and I was doing a lot of logos, and I was doing magazine layouts. Even I was doing all these things for local businesses. I was involved with the local chambers of commerce. That's why I still have a really good relationship with the Ball Heights Chamber of Commerce. So during all that, I met somebody that had an office next to my office in a little building in East LA, and that person ran what is a movie security company. So one day, one of his supervisors quit, and he was like, Rafa, I need somebody on set tomorrow. Can you do this? Can you start working for me? Because I need somebody that can manage a crew, that has good communication skills. And so the next day, I'm on set running the crew for the Biggie Smalls movie that was shot out on Wilshire at the Peterson Museum. I was out there the next day, and anyway, I did that for a few years. And when that ended, I knew that first of all, that was a really fun job, and getting to be behind the scenes and learning a lot about location managing, and learning a lot about how the film industry works, and learning a lot about the process just to get one day of shooting done. And one day of shooting equals, like, 2 minutes of a film. So just to, like, be able to see that entire process taught me so much. But anyways, at one point I decided that I didn't want to do that anymore, and that I wasn't going to be I didn't want to stay being, like, working with security guards and locations. So I knew that I had to leave that job. And around that time, that was, geez, I don't know how fast I'm moving, but now it's like September of 2009. And this is what brings us closer to where we're at now. But September of 2009, September of 2009, I left that job, and I had a little bit of savings. And at the same time, God, this is kind of complicated. All right, this is how all of those worlds connect. So because of the LA Business Connect website, I was taking journalism classes to learn how to write articles for the website. Because of that journalism class, I got to meet some people that worked at Citizen LA, which was a downtown art magazine. Because of that downtown art magazine, I got more involved in the downtown art scene because I interviewed one of the people from there. And then because of that, I then started writing for them, and then I asked if I could take photos as well. And this was September 2009. I had my own camera now, and it was a professional digital. It's the first time I bought like an expensive camera for myself. And at that same time, I quit working in the film industry thing, and I was just kind of roaming around with my camera. And it was September, and I decided that in January I was going to start a 365-day photo shoot at the beginning of the year. So I wanted to just dive 100% completely into photography. Of course, once I had that camera and I could take as many pictures as I could every single day, I didn't stop, and I dove deeper and deeper into it. And so in January 1st of 2010, I took my first picture, which is the Latin Playboy picture, which was, you know, it's a very simple photo, but God damn it, I love it. It was January 1st, 2010. I was completely hungover. It was probably about 3 p.m. on January 1st when I finally made my way out of the house. And I was living at that point on Rowan, and I walked all the way down Rowan just to Cesar Chavez. And, you know, I thought, all right, I'm going to start my photo shoot experiment. And at this point, I knew nothing of what was going to be with these photos. All I knew was that I wanted to make photography like second nature. You know, I wanted it to be as easy as picking up a camera and knowing where to move the buttons and shooting. So that's why I wanted to shoot every day. I just wanted it to be ingrained in my brain and in my hands, and make that camera really become an extension of me. So that first shoot was that. And every single day from that day forward, I took pictures every single day. And every single day I came home and edited. And every single day I posted one photo to, back then, what was Facebook, because Instagram was not blowing up yet. And because of that, like, it got a little bit of attention. And then I had my first, like, somebody wrote a piece about me in a website called Me's Neighbors. And because of that, like, it got more attention. And then people were like, oh, well, you should have a show. So I started that whole shooting thing in January. And in October, as my birthday came around, I had my first exhibit that I put together myself at Eastside Love. And it was crazy. It was crazy how many people showed up, and it was crazy the reception that I got. So it just never stopped after that. And, you know, it's something that still to this day still happens. I don't shoot as much anymore for a lot of reasons. One is because I'm getting old, and I'm not, I know people are like, you're not old. I know. I'm 51, but I've also had like some health issues that really slow me down, and I've also, I don't have the same stamina. Like, man, I used to just grab my camera and I could leave for hours, and I could shoot 1,000 or more pictures a day and come back and look through them, and I just don't have the stamina anymore to do it every day. And so I still do it every once in a while, but I just don't do it as often. And I also try to change up what I've been doing. Like, for example, like lately I've been using that little tiny camera that is so much fun just to carry around in my pocket and just do an entire event with just one little camera. And then go home and edit, and yeah, it's a little Canon Alpha that I use that just gives me so much pleasure to use. So yes, I mean, that's where we're at. Where was I? Okay, so the photography thing, and you know, to this day, it's who who knew when I started to take these pictures that, they would end up at LACMA. They would end up at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. Like, I had a huge show at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. I had a solo show at Vincent Price Art Museum. I had my work tour with LACMA. I've some of my pictures were used in the are right now being shown in a Smithsonian show that has nothing to do with me. It's about Chicano music, but some of my pictures are in there, and that's amazing. Amazing. I had no idea any of that was going to happen. So I'm blown away myself at how that has developed. What else can I tell you? I got to a point where I really wanted to do something different with my photography. I wanted to do something completely different with my photography, but it requires so much money, and I couldn't do it. And I think that's part of what happened last year is that I thought I was going to start shooting that last year, like June last year. I thought I was going to start shooting it, and then when it didn't happen, I just started to question a lot of like, well, what the fuck am I doing now, and what am I gonna do, and that's another reason why I don't go out every day is because I am somebody that likes to continue to like to do something, change something, do this way, do this that way. When I started the podcast. When I started the podcast, people are like, why are you podcasting? Why are you doing that? Like, you're a photographer. And in my head, I was like, am I? Like, I have been a photographer for 10 years, but I'm also an actor. I'm also, the business assistant guy. I'm also, the guy who was an MC. I'm all these things, and all these things evolve, and I evolve, and I've evolved into this. And so this is where it has brought me. Am I still a photographer? Hell yeah. Hell's yes. And I still play with my cameras, and I still experiment, and I still learn something. I don't know crap about photography. I know very little. And every time that I try it, I find something, I feel something. I'm also somebody who and my daughter knows this about me more than anybody. Like, my brain fills up with stuff and then it blanks out. And then I know nothing. And that's what happens to me with photography too sometimes. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go shoot this. Wait, how was that? And what do I have to do? And so, again, I'm figuring out, exactly the process. The process. This is something that I've said a lot of times too. The process is my favorite part. The process of figuring something out. The problem solving, and once you figure something out, you're like, God damn it, like, now let's figure out the next thing, because that's what happens when you figure something out. You learn the next layer of things that there is to learn. And so when I hit that wall creatively, with not being able to move my art forward, my brain just had to do something different, and it reached out to this. It reached out to podcasting, which was something that I wanted to do for a long time. I already had, thanks to TASCAM, I already had the audio recorder. I already had, I already had the idea, but it was something that had been bubbling for a long time, but I couldn't do it, and thankfully that during the pandemic, when I started the vlogs, God damn, that was a lot of fun. The vlogs were a lot of fun, but they are a tremendous amount of work. And this podcast became like the most streamlined way to put out content once a week. So thanks to Outer Circle Media and Movita Juice Bar, I love them so much. They were both very, very instrumental in helping me start the podcast. But the point that I wanted to make about the podcast is that the podcast became a place for me to have these discussions with people, to try to hash out why I do this, and because I didn't get to go to art school, and of course I learn a lot on YouTube and I read books and all that, but I always feel inferior to artists who have gone to art school. But I also feel that you don't need to go to art school, of course, to be an artist. But having these discussions with all of my friends and some artists that I've just met, and learning their processes and learning about their life and how they got to where they got to has been beautiful. It's been eye-opening. It's been just very, I guess, nourishing to me, and it just became what I needed, and it is what I need right now. So I appreciate everybody who's come through here and sat with me and shared with me their stories, and oh man, I also appreciate all of you out there that listen and take the time to hit that subscribe button and share with your friends and share on Instagram and share on through texts and Jesus, there's like professors that share these conversations with their students in universities. So here's this guy, me, myself, and I, who like never got to do college the way that I was supposed to, but my photos and my photo books, I get emails from colleges across the country that tell me that they discuss in Ohio my book because that's like the closest that some of their students will ever get to understanding this neighborhood. That was talking about my book Masaka. And now professors are using my book in university. I mean, now professors are using this podcast. Wow. Thank you so much. It just makes you feel like it's just good to know that like you're heading in the right direction or you're doing something right or that just that. I mean, what I wanted when I first started was just to start creating this archive that people can use. Like I use YouTube. Like when I use YouTube, I'm like, oh, I want to know about this. And boom, find somebody, find something. I don't know those people, but they provide a lot of information for me. So I wanted to create my own little archive or catalog of these kind of conversations that will hopefully help somebody else in the future. And I didn't know that immediately. Like colleges were going to start using it. And that blows my mind. And I'm so grateful for those professors. Thank you. Just, I hope that people continue to do that. And I hope that I can continue to do this. And I hope that this also becomes self-sustainable and grows so that I can grow with it. But I also really want to do, the famous line, but I also want to direct. But all I want to do is be a director. No. But I also really want to continue with my photography and continue with a couple of film projects that have taken me so long to get to. Because I still have, those dreams. But it's difficult to do all these things when you don't have the money behind you. I want to answer a few questions that somebody asked on Instagram. This question is from Sweetgrass BH, and I guess it's not a question, but it's share more of your relationship to urban nature. Wow, I think everybody knows that I love Debs Park. Debs Park is one of my favorite places to hike. But lately, or in the past few years, because I don't drive, I've had a hard time getting out there. So because I don't get out there as much, I haven't seen it as much. But I love it so much. It's our little mini Griffith Park over here on this side of town. And then Griffith Park is also another one that I love. Um, you know, I guess ever since I was little, like we seeked out those empty lots where the houses has been knocked down and completely removed, and there's dirt, and you can play in the dirt, and it's so much fun to play in the dirt. And I guess I always had that kind of like need to touch nature. When I've been to the redwood forests, and when I'm out there, and you feel the air alive because of all the life that is above it and below it, like dying and living and dying and living. And there's a complete connection between everything when you're in a place like that where the earth is dying and living at the same time, and the trees above are also living and growing and dying, and they're all giving you something that you take into your lungs. And it's yeah, I haven't been out as much as I wish I could lately, but damn it, you know um nature is beautiful. Yeah, I've also done like swimming and scuba diving have also been a big part of my life. So being up in the mountains or being down in the water underneath it are two beautiful things. And within our neighborhoods, like I've been trying to, I thanks to the husky naturalist at Debs Park, Marcos. He gave me a little pamphlet with bird watching identification stuff, and man, it's really cool to like be able to spot a bird and know what it is. And also with plants and succulents, it's just, I don't know if it's age. Maybe it is age. Maybe it's how old I am now that I really appreciate all these little tiny things. And they've also, like, plants have become also like something new for me to discover and figure out and try to understand how to, help them grow, and how to help, just nature itself move forward. So, yeah, thank you, Laura, for that. I hope I answered your question. I'm not sure I did. This is from Raven Sanchez. Please describe your art practice, materials, methods, rituals, etc. Art practice. Well, I guess I talked a lot about what I did already and what I do, but for me, I like I like to just I like to do the work first and then try to figure it out. So like I like to go out and shoot a bunch of stuff and then look at all the stuff that I shot and then filter through it, edit it, figure out like what creates or what tells the story, or because you can shape that narrative yourself. Me and you can go out and shoot an entire day together, and we're both going to come home and go into our separate homes, and our our internal process is going to decide what gets cut, what doesn't, what side of that you want to show, and what things you don't want to show. Because that does happen sometimes, where I have these beautiful pictures and I'm like, no, I don't really want to. I don't really want to show that. So that's where all the filtering happens. That's where you start to run it through the rough filter, and then the finer filter, and then the finest filter, to finally put your story up. And I'm not the best at that, but I'm specific to me, I guess, And I just kind of like get to a place where I feel like I can understand something from what I'm showing, and hopefully it's something that will resonate with others. Is just what I try to do. Just try to there's some things that kind of have an energy or a vibe, or they when you put two things together, they just push forward like a feeling. And that's what I try to get, especially when I put series together, or like when I put that entire book together, or just groups of images. They'll all have like some kind of unifying field that just resonates. And so I think that's what I try to do. And it's hard to say when a work is done. You just kind of like feel that feeling, and I guess that's it. I don't know. I don't know if I answered your question, but thank you, Raven. And here's a question from Gustavo. It seems to it seems tough to put on a weekly show with a guest. Well, it is and it isn't. I've made this show, like I said earlier, it became the most streamlined way to put together weekly content. And when it was at the studio, God, it was so easy for me. All I had to do was show up, make a cup of coffee, and sit down. Now I have to set all this up and arrange. I mean, of course, arranging the guests has always been a thing, but I have to set all this up, make sure all the mics are on, make sure everything's on, make sure that everything works. Of course, I've had some blunders, but it is hard. But at the same time, it's one of those things that is work, but it's also fun. It's also not work. And like I said, I enjoy these conversations so much that it's not work. it's it's something that helps me out and gives me energy. But it's hard when, God, there were some days out at the studio where I had to go all the way to the west side. But there was some days, because I said I had like some health issues, that I had barely enough energy to get there and then to sit down and do the conversation and then leave. And it was it's difficult to do it when your body and your brain are not 100%. When your body and your brain are not wanting to go forward, and you have to do it, and that's when it's difficult. But I just I try my best, and hopefully you didn't notice that I was dying inside. But but there have been some moments that are really difficult. But yeah, thank you guys for your questions. I know I only gave a tiny window to leave some questions today, because I didn't know that this was going to be this today. I was really nervous to do this today, to do just a one person thing to myself, and see how it goes. But again, it was also rewarding. Like, it felt good to just talk, and hopefully I didn't put you guys to sleep. And if you did fall asleep, I hope that you wake up and rewind it and listen to it again. What else can I tell you guys before I head out? Love life, love art, love yourself. And I think our host is coming back. Hey, what's up? I hope that you had a good time talking to yourself, and I'll check it out later. But I want to say thank you for coming, and tell everybody what your website is. My Instagram is rafa.la. The Instagram for the podcast is at Dancing Sober. Check out the website so that you could find things to shop for this holiday season. And now there's a question that we ask everybody at the end of each show, and if you could answer in one sentence, if somebody that admires your work, that's been studying it, and knows the trajectory of your life, if they were just completely trying to understand you, and you only had one sentence to answer, and they asked you, how would you answer if they asked you, Rafa, how do you do it? A huevo, no hay otra. A huevo, no hay otra. thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time to come see us, and we'll see you next week.